Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. I'm your host, Sam Lance, and I'm joined by Jackson Bezdek once again. And we have another special episode for you guys today, episode 22. We're going to be recapping a tough loss that Kansas took at the hands of K-State in Manhattan. And then we will be previewing College Game Day in Lawrence, Kansas Baylor, with Foster Nicholas from Bears Illustrated 24/7 page. So, got a good episode in store for y'all. Let's get right into it. Well, all right, Jackson. Playing on the road has been quite the nightmare for Kansas this season. One win on the road now against Indiana, an Indiana team who really is not very good at all. And that nightmare on the road for Kansas this season continued on Monday with a 75-70 overtime loss in Manhattan. Jackson and I were kind of thinking of recording some sort of instant reaction. But, I mean, let's be honest. We probably needed a day or two to kind of process our emotions for this one, Jackson.
I would have said some things that I wish I wouldn't have had we recorded a couple of days ago. I hate losing to K-State more than I hate losing to anybody on the schedule every year. It's growing up, dude. It was like Beasley got us, and then Jacob Pullen got us one year. But other than that, it was Allen Fieldhouse West out there. We'd go in there and dominate. And past 2 years just hasn't been the same. And it's been really frustrating. And I'm really freaking tired of losing to Jerome Tang's happy ass. Man, 11-0 in overtime is crazy, dude. That is one of the craziest stats in college basketball, I think, right now. But yeah, it was Sam and I needed a day or two, potentially three, to to swallow this one.
Yeah, I watched this one with a couple of my buddies, and man, it was a great game. I'll say that. I love the games in Manhattan just because of the atmosphere. It really is a great atmosphere. But yeah, we were frustrated after that one, and I just remember the game ends, and I probably sat on the couch next to my friend, and we did not say a word to each other for probably 20 minutes or so after this one, until I finally was like, all right, I got to go home.
It was one of those nights. I just didn't think Kansas was going to lose that. It was every direction was pointed to Kansas's way. I mean, and then it gets to overtime, and I still think Kansas is going to win. I was shocked because I don't think K-State will make the tournament. I don't think they're a good basketball team whatsoever. I think even if they do make the tournament, they're an easy first round exit.
What's even more sickening, Jackson, is Kansas, by losing this game, just drastically helped K-State potentially make the NCAA.
Yeah, it gives them a free quad one win. That's ridiculous. And on top of that, it was a must-win game for the Big 12. I mean, we'll talk about it coming up, but that is a whole different conversation now.
Yeah, Big 12, a lot harder. Jackson, I have something for you, and I tweeted this yesterday. A lot of people probably saw it already, but man, this loss in Manhattan does not mean very good things for Kansas. If you look at the years that Kansas has lost in Manhattan, the last 4 times Kansas has done this, they have been a second round exit in the NCAA tournament. 2014 was to Stanford. They lost in Manhattan that year. 2015 lost in Manhattan. That year they lost to Wichita State. And then 2019, the second round exit. Who was that to again? That was to Auburn, right? And
yeah,
then
that game was not close.
Arkansas. So the last 4 times that Kansas has lost in Manhattan, second round exit.
3 of those are in recent memory, just like I was saying. It's not the same as it used to be.
But I will say this, Jackson. In there also, and this is all under Bill Self, and there's also, in 2008, a national title.
Yep.
Whenever Kansas lost at K-State. And then in 2011, an Elite 8 loss to VCU. So not all hope is lost. Not all hope is lost.
Those were 2 like really, really good Kansas State teams though. Like that was Beasley, and then that was Pullen. Like those guys were hoopers for sure. This this feels different than those two, just like the ones in the past years have felt different. Actually, last year it didn't feel. K-State was really good last year. They are not good this year. They were not good in those other 2 years that Kansas lost to them. And I know Bill in the presser, he wasn't concerned and wasn't upset about it. That kind of pissed me off. I'm not gonna lie. Like, dude, you're now 1-2 against your in-state rival head coach. Does that not piss you off at all? Does that not rub you the wrong way that statistically they can say that he owns you? I mean, I was expecting a little bit more fire out of Self, especially because I personally thought we played pretty freaking soft down the stretch.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. So let's kind of get into this game now a little bit. Going over a little bit of some game flow recap here. The first half of this game, I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty much a battle of mid. Neither team played really well. K-State, I thought, did some okay things offensively, and they actually played really well defensively to take KU out of what it wanted to do. But I didn't think K-State played great or anything like that. Maybe not even good. And then Kansas, of course, could not get anything going offensively. I had in my game notes, Jackson. I was just taking them on my phone for this one. Usually I'm laptop all over Twitter,
Right. Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah.
but I had to enjoy this game with my boys. So I was taking notes on my phone, and in all caps, towards the end of the first half of my notes is, what in the hell are we running?
That's a great point, Sam. Sam, that's a great point. And I'm sure that there was really no answer to that because we were probably not running any semblance of offense whatsoever.
Yeah, the offense in this game seemed very scrambled. It was actually KU's second worst performance in terms of points per possession, behind the Marquette game, and we know how that kind of went. But really, I think it's just what K-State did defensively to us that kind of scrambled us on offense a little bit. K-State did a really good job. This is how they guarded ball screens for the most part. The guy guarding the ball would fight through the screen, and the big man would play in super drop coverage, be able to guard the drive from the guard, and then be able to take on the roller. And K-State was really good at this. I'm not going to lie. They dared KU to shoot, and Kansas, of course, didn't want to shoot. And when they did, it was Kevin McCullough taking probably a mid-range fadeaway jumper that he probably shouldn't take. And the other thing that K-State did extremely well, that I think this was really the most important thing, they fronted the post so well. Like, Hunter Dickinson battled to try to get the ball down there. And even whenever KU was trying to throw it over the top, it seemed like it was getting turned over many a times. And they just made it hard for Hunter to get the ball. And then whenever Hunter did get the ball, they actually let him play one-on-one quite a bit. And they got mostly burned, but Hunter just didn't make all the shots that he usually makes in this one. And, you also have KJ and DeJuan's man kind of creeping in on him at times. But yeah, K-State did a really good job of guarding us.
They went with the approach of, we'll let Hunter get 40 if he wants to, but nobody else is going to get 10. And McCullough still found a way to get some buckets. I actually thought DeJuan was okay late, but what I thought they did really well is they didn't give Furphy any room all night. Furphy has been a national sensation, you can say, the past couple weeks. Was the catalyst for Kansas' big win on Saturday against Houston, shooting 55% from three over the past 5 games. And he has 4 points, I think, against Kansas State. Doesn't make a three. I mean, they didn't give him any breathing room. I mean, they didn't even consider doubling the post off of Furphy at any point. And I'm a little worried that they might have exposed the best way to guard Kansas is if you just take away Johnny Furphy. Seth Greenberg did a great job before the game started about talking about the Furphy effect. Everything we've been saying, right? It's not just his shooting. It's the fact that you have to respect him as a shooter. And it's the fact that opens everything else up in the offense. And the rest of the offense just wasn't, running not smooth whatsoever. And without Furphy, you don't have that knockdown guy. And I guess it's Kevin. Kevin did not play well at all. And he played really bad down the stretch. So it was just, I thought them taking away Furphy was just, it was great. I don't even think Furphy had a clean look from three. I think he was 0 for 3, and all three I think were heavily contested.
Yeah, I thought he got fouled on one of them, but
Yeah, it was,
that's neither here nor there. But yeah, K-State did a really good job against Kansas, and even off ball, like they were fighting through all these screens. Unless it was an exchange between Kevin McCullough and KJ Adams, they would switch those. But other than that, they were fighting through screens. And like going back, I watched literally every possession. Every time that KU got a switch on K-State that they did not want, Kansas scored. Like pretty much every time. It just didn't happen very often. So yeah, we'll get into KU's offensive issues a little bit more down the stretch here, but let's jump back into this game a little bit. 32-30 at halftime, like we said. And then coming out of half, Kansas actually starts off really well, a 9-0 run to start the second half. Hunter Dickinson kind of got going right away, and it made it 41-30, which was the biggest lead of the game. At this moment, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, here we are. This is what should be going on. We should be beating K-State by double digits. I don't care if it's in Manhattan. I don't care if the fans are going crazy. This is what we should be doing. And then K-State in a second goes on an 11-0 run to tie the game. And that was pretty much the turning point, because after that, it was a game down the stretch. But it's a lot of stuff to talk about going down the stretch here. First, we'll just jump right to the last play in regulation. KJ Adams, Kansas down 2. KJ Adams, a free dunk to tie the game. Like K-State guarded us really well. I don't know what the heck they were doing on that play, but free bucket. Then Kansas State can't make their shot, so we're going to overtime. In overtime, K-State goes up 72-68, and it's nearing about 1 minute to play now. Kansas not looking great, but still has some life. But then McCullough steps out of bounds.
Bad.
Really, really bad play.
Bad.
But then it's okay because DeJuan gets that steal, and he heads to the line. 2-point game now, 51 seconds left. KU's still in it. They just need a stop. They get the stop, and then Kevin McCullough is fouled with 21 seconds left. Again, at this point, I'm thinking, yes, like nice. Like we got probably our best free throw shooter, the guy I want at the line, on the line. But Kevin McCullough misses both free throws, misses the front end of the 1-and-1.
Yep.
To end up going 1 of 5 from the free throw line. K-State then makes both free throws to make it 74-70. DeJuan misses a layup. KJ fouls with 5 seconds left, and that was the ball game. 75-70, Kansas loses.
Kevin killed us, straight up. Kevin killed us. I mean, for as great as he's been all year, for many times he's stepped up. I talked about it a couple weeks ago. His shooting efficiency numbers were going down. He played great on Saturday against Houston, and then right back to this, where he just cannot buy a bucket. I thought his jumper looked weird. Like when he shot that last free throw, he has a little hitch at the top. He normally does. It looked way more exaggerated than it normally does. I mean, he looked nervous going to the line. I didn't have a ton of confidence in him to hit that. It was so short. It wasn't even close. He just wasn't himself. And Kansas can't afford that. Kansas cannot afford any bad Kevin McCullough game. Kevin, if you want to be J. Will and if you want to be Ochai, what those guys meant to this team, you don't get any nights off. I'm sorry. That luxury does not exist for you. You need to step up every single night. And he just didn't. He made bad passes again down the stretch, turnovers and missed free throws. I mean, that's what you lose any basketball game ever. You can go look at that, and you probably didn't do great in those two categories. And Kevin specifically was really bad in those categories.
Yeah, on the season and Big 12 play, Kevin McCullough is shooting 44% from the field, 34% from three, averaging 18.1 points per game. That's not terrible. That's not bad at all. But since Cincinnati, he's at 17 points per game. Still amazing that he has this many points per game, but his efficiency has gone way down. 37.7% field goal percentage and 33% free. And that's with Jackson, the 7 of 8 against Houston. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is right now for Kevin McCullough. I think it might be a combination of the knee still bothering him, fatigue. playing, 35 minutes a night. I mean, he is playing 35 minutes a night right now. Like I'm just not worried though, still. I mean, I'm really not. Uh, he's a great player. I think the problem is, Jackson, is Kevin McCullough doesn't function very well as the guy.
Yeah, I think
Like
we're seeing that.
Kevin McCullough's NBA ceiling is not somebody who is going to score 20 points per game. He's
Ever.
somebody that's going to give insane effort defensively. He's a guy who's probably going to spot up and make some shots, be
Mhm.
able to drive to the basket and such, but he's not going to be anywhere near the 20 points per game as an NBA player, maybe not even 10 points per game.
That would
So
shock me.
I think just having him be the guy is kind of weighing on him a little bit because
Yep.
that's just not Kevin McCullough's game. He is not the guy. He
It's
is
the
for this
first
Kansas
time.
team. He's being asked to, but he's just not that type of player.
It's the first time in his career he's being asked to do this much. It's a huge ask, and he started off so well and so strong that we kind of just accepted that he was going to be that good all year. That was really never going to be the case because that's just not the type of player he is. He gives you so much on the defensive end that you shouldn't have to ask him to do this much on offense. And I I don't know, fatigue is definitely a thing. I just think this team as a whole is just not super, like, I don't want to say tight because I mean, I'm sure they're best of friends, but like they can't win games on the road. They can't. The last road game you said was Indiana. That felt like a year ago, man. That was so long ago. They literally can't win on the road. It's it's
It's just hard to win on the road this year, Jackson. Top 10 teams. I
Oklahoma
saw
State. They
this
won at
stat.
Oklahoma State too, but Oklahoma
Top
State.
10 teams have won 47.4% of their games on the road this season against ranked opponents. The previous lowest percentage for the stat was 62%.
Yeah, it's a weird year. It's a weird
Now
year.
it's down under 50.
There's just a lot of, well, there's more parity in college basketball than anything with the portal and with, NIL. There's not going to be one, stacked up, loaded up roster. If guys can get minutes wherever they can, they're going to go to that place. So a lot of the talent is being dispersed around college basketball, but just Kansas specifically, it doesn't make sense. They're not losing to teams better than them. This has never been an issue for a Bill Self team that I can remember, at least. Like, I mean, all of like the bad Kansas years, quote unquote, had, a rough non-con loss. You lose, get blown out the Champions Classic. You drop 2 or 3 on the road in the Big 12. You walk into the tournament 26-6. That's not going to happen this year. I don't know. And Bill doesn't seem concerned by it. I don't know why. I mean, maybe he is behind closed doors, but to the media, he is cool as a cucumber. And I'm like, dude, I get it. I'm not worried about this team in March, down the stretch, whatever. I have faith in the guys in the locker room, but there's something up. There's something wrong with your team if they can't win on the road. Is there no leader to step up at the under 4 timeout in the huddle? Like, hey, lock in right now. It's time. No one's doing that. Someone needs to step up and do that. That's how you win road games. It's just frustrating. And I'm not saying Kevin's not a leader, but Kevin's got to be the guy to, rip into some guys. Like, hey, we're down 4 on the road. Let's go.
Kansas has had some really good leaders in the past few years. Like Jalen Wilson was a really good leader. The national championship team, like realistically, had
whole starting lineup.
Had 4.
Yeah.
Like Ochai and Dave kind of led by example, and CB and Jalen are more of your vocal guys, but that team had a bunch of dudes.
DeJuan's a big lead by example guy too. He's not a big talker, but you just mirror the way he plays, you're gonna play well. But that's you need a vocal leader. You can't just have a lead by example guy, because Monday night, that's what happens when you don't have a big vocal leader, is the team just kind of drowns out. And if you're all looking to Bill Self, like, everybody shouldn't be looking to the coach to like hype him up and get him fired up. That's got to be an internal thing. I know KJ can do it on his own. We see it every game. But I worry about this team down the stretch in close games just being able to like come together and fight and scrap and crawl, because it didn't happen on Monday.
I think the problem with the close games is Kansas just really, really doesn't have anybody who can go get a bucket. We talked about this before the season started. Like, this is kind of one of our biggest concerns. And this was very apparent against Kansas State. Shout out to Mike Vernon for this information, by the way. If you don't have Mike Vernon's newsletter, if you're not subscribed to that, I don't know what you're doing as a Kansas fan. He has really good stuff. But in Mike Vernon's newsletter that came out yesterday, he found something really interesting, I think. So basically, against Kansas State, Kansas scored 0 points on 8 shots in the last 4 seconds of the shot clock, right? So in the last 4 seconds of the shot clock, that's when it's like, shit, like we got to get something up. We got to create. Kansas really doesn't have that this year. And here's some more that Mike went into, some numbers via Synergy. Kansas has 48 points and 86 possessions that qualify this under 4 in the shot clock. It ranks number 343 in the country in points per possession, and that's worst in the Power 5.
Oh, that's not great.
In the UCF game, which is like pretty odd that this is the case, KU shot 5 of 8 in these situations, which isn't bad. But in all other Big 12 games, Kansas is 3 for 33 from the field with under 4 seconds left in the shot clock.
That is super bad. Well, you know who that reminds me of is Tyler Perry for K-State. I mean, he had 9 points that came on 3-second shot clock chucks. Who's doing that on KU? KU doesn't have Tyler Perry. Like, do I want Tyler Perry running my offense if I'm trying to make a run in March? Absolutely not. No, I do not. But if I need a bucket with 3 seconds on the shot clock, there's no better guy to go to. That's weird to say that K-State had such an advantage over KU in any facet of the game, but that is totally one. And it's weird that we're so bad. You have the best low post one-on-one scorer in the country behind the 7'4" guy from Purdue. How do you not just give him the ball with like 5? You look up 5 seconds on the shot clock. Shit. Okay, Hunter, go.
It's not that easy, Jackson. That's why.
Apparently it's apparently it's the hardest thing in the world, Sam. Apparently getting Hunter Dickinson the ball is incredibly hard for Kansas.
Yeah, I mean this is going to show up in March. This right here, the under 4 seconds in the shot clock thing. KU, the only person that I legitimately am like thinking like, okay, if you give them the ball and like they go one-on-one, they might make 5 out of 10 shots, 4 out of 10 shots, is maybe Elmarco Jackson, just because he's so twitchy.
Yeah.
Like Kevin McCullough, I'm sorry, I'm not trusting him to take the ball with 4 seconds on the shot clock or whatever the situation is and just go get his own. Like we have seen now over the last couple weeks that Kevin McCullough isn't the most efficient.
He's a bad hero ball player.
Plays like that. So yeah, this is a huge issue for Kansas. And I'm glad that Mike Vernon kind of uncovered this because it really does make a lot of sense and show why KU struggles offensively, because they can't really improvise. If a team takes Kansas out of what they want to do and Kansas can't get anything going, it's going to be really, really hard for Kansas to score and score consistently. So yeah, it's a big deal, Jackson, but now we're coming to this to close. Do you believe that Kansas can still secure a Big 12 title? And then we'll talk about Phoenix. Do you believe that Kansas can make it to Phoenix? We'll start with Big 12 though.
Big 12, I want to say yes still, just because you win the conference 17 out of 20 times. You can't say no until you're mathematically eliminated, right? But low-key, you kind of are like mathematically eliminated right now. With you got to go 2 out of 4 at those 4 brutal away games. You got to take care of business at home, which it's easier said than done, I guess. But with all these, it's such a weird year in the conference that I feel like anything could happen. I'd spent a lot of home teams lately, but Houston played so poorly at points against us that I would be surprised if that didn't pop up the rest of the year, right? Basically, what I'm saying is I think Houston might drop one they're not supposed to. And then you've got to be sitting there waiting for it. Maybe I don't think Iowa State is a complete basketball team. Maybe they don't play so well one time and drop one that they're not supposed to lose. Kansas has already dropped the ones they're supposed to lose, right? All of that is done. All of that's behind us. looking forward is the hardest games you have, right?
We
All
have
you have to do,
literally the hardest schedule in the country to
I
end.
think, like, yeah, I think according to Ken Palm, right? Like, it's like literally like the hardest schedule left. You have to win your home games. I don't know. I don't even think that we should care about the Big 12 so much. I don't want to say like give up on it, but more just focus on like figuring out what's wrong with this team. Why can't this team win on the road and getting them tight to make a run in Phoenix? And maybe, and if you do this, if you focus on, hey, we need to get a lot better in a month's time. Let's just get a lot better, figure out all our kinks, and let's be ready to go by the middle of March. You might accidentally win the Big 12 with that mindset just because you end up playing so well and maybe a couple teams drop. I don't know. I think Phoenix is still very much in the question just because, you know, guys aren't going to be as gassed in those games. All of it's on neutral site. So if you're scared of playing on the road, we don't have to play on the road. We don't have to play on
It
the road.
still worries me the 2 day gap for that, because Kansas, I mean, I guess they played okay. They lost just having a 1 day off in between. It was Oklahoma State on the road and then Cincinnati at home. So they were no, actually it might have been West Virginia than Cincinnati.
It was West
So
Virginia.
you got a loss in there in that, 2 games in 3 days. And then you got Marquette, Tennessee, which is another 2 games, and well, that's 2 games in 2 days. That's in like 12 hours. That's another story. And then you have what just happened, Houston, Kansas State. So I don't know, it's not looking great for Kansas trying
I
to.
just I just think the reason I just think fatigue is such a cop out with like KJ Adams is so like physically in shape. Hunter, I get. Dewan has played the whole game the past 2 years. I mean, like, can you remember Dewan sitting out for more than 5 minutes ever since starting? It just doesn't really happen. I think you hit the nail on the head with McCullough. He just might not be the guy, and I think if you're looking at Phoenix, I think if we can transition to getting the ball to Hunter more in important situations, like against TCU. Against TCU, tie game, you go down the floor, Hunter posts up, you clear everybody out, give it to him, he scores in 3 seconds. It looks so easy when it works well. That's why it's so hard to say, yeah, I think Kansas is going to lose in the first weekend. Because when they're on, it looks so freaking easy, and even a team like Houston can't do anything about it.
Yeah, just for the Big 12, I'm going to stick with my guns from a couple episodes ago and say KU won't win the Big 12. And it's just because the
Logistically,
average Ken Palm rank for KU's remaining schedule is 25. That's the average rank for a team that KU is playing. Uh, Everyone is inside the top 35 besides Kansas State. And by the way, I would bet a lot of money that KU beats Kansas State by like 20 points that game. Just saying.
maybe 40.
Uh, that's a damn gauntlet.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be insanely hard for Kansas to win this league. Houston and Iowa State, I forget where I saw this. I think it was on an ESPN broadcast, but Houston and Iowa State both have the easiest schedules remaining out of the Big 12 teams. And those are the two teams that Kansas is chasing. Like if
That's super
Kansas
annoying.
got a share of the conference, Kansas is going to get a share probably with 6 losses, and we're going to need some major help from
Indeed.
somebody to beat Houston, because I don't think that Houston is dropping more than 1 game uh,
Yeah.
to end the year. But
It's
yeah,
yeah. At this point, it's not that Kansas isn't good enough to win the Big 12. It's just they've made too many mistakes at this point, and logistically, it just doesn't look good. That's pretty much what it comes down to.
just for Phoenix, I mean, first off, the number 1 seed, third straight number 1 seed, that's probably, unless Kansas wins out and wins the Big 12 tournament, that's not happening anymore. But yeah, so now you're looking at a 2 to 4 seed probably for Kansas, somewhere in there. I mean, there's no reason to believe Kansas can't make it to the Final Four,
Right,
right?
right, right.
But it just looking on Twitter from that post that I posted yesterday, just looking in the comments about Kansas losing in the second round after losing at K-State. I mean, the bench, man. Everybody is saying, like, everybody in response to that tweet was just like, yeah, I mean, makes sense with the bench we have this year. Like, and it really seems like
Not a
KU
bad take.
fans, for the most part, have kind of lost hope on this team. It seems that way a little
It's
bit.
there's such a high standard, It's impossible to live up to year in, year out. They're right. Like the bench is bad, and it would have been nice to have a little eight off the bench from whoever on Monday night, but can't just that. I think another part of like preparing yourself for March the rest of the season is kind of just accepting that fact. We've done everything we can to try and get Marco going, to try and get Timberlake going. At some point, you got to just eat it. Like we missed.
But Kansas can't play the rest of the season with 5 guys, Jackson. It just
No, they're not going to either. But
they basically are right now.
Well, they're going to lose if they don't, Sam. Do you want, is this equal playing time at the Y to get everybody in and lose in the process? Like, dude, Marco, you're not cutting it. You can't play right now. It's just, it's so frustrating that there's literally only 5 guys you can trust. We can talk circles around this stuff all year. The bottom line hasn't changed since episode 1 that we have been concerned about. It's been the exact same.
This is the sanctions are hitting us like kind of a little hard right now,
And we have
Bill
one less
Self has no wiggle room the next. I forget when that's up, but he has no wiggle room on missing on a guy like Nick Timberlake. If we have 10 scholarships, like there is no wiggle room right now.
Have to hit on that. Like Timberlake had to be a hit because he's one of 9 scholarships that you're available to this year. You can't just be giving these out to like potential projects. And obviously that's not what we thought we were doing, but holy crap, it has been a swing and a miss.
I've always thought about this, Jackson, with Timberlake. What if he went to UConn? Like, would he be like Cam Spencer-esque at UConn? Like, I really don't know.
It's really fascinating to like, especially in college, because these kids mentally, that takes more of a toll on them than like say NBA players when you do those hypotheticals. Like, dude, you're a 20-year-old, some old kid. Like anything can change your life in just an instant. Like, what if Timberlake did go to UConn? He might be averaging 12 a game for him. What if Cam Spencer comes to Kansas? Maybe he's having the same situation Timberlake is because Bill refuses to play him over DeJuan because he loves DeJuan so much. Like I can't get over how good Harrison Ingram's been for UNC. That's the one for me where I look at and I'm like,
yeah, we wanted him bad too.
We wanted him bad, and he has been playing really well. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. But other than, I mean, Dickinson's been as advertised, there's at least one win there. But like, man, think about
that.
Like,
that would have been an insane miss if for some reason Hunter Dickinson just didn't turn out good.
Well, same thing. Think about Mbako. He's basically nothing in Indiana right now. What if he stays the course, comes to Kansas? What if McCullough goes pro and it's Mbako instead of McCullough? His team's probably way worse, honestly.
Yeah. Kevin McCullough is, we kind of, we're a little harsh on him earlier today, but the dude is still averaging like the most points in the Big 12.
He's gonna get his points. He's
being an absolute beast. He's number 5 in field goal percentage in Big 12 play at 47%. So, I mean,
that's more of an indictment on how bad some of the offenses are in the Big 12, I think, than anything.
Yeah. All right, a couple things to close y'all. Right now, both Jackson and I are kind of on Phoenix, and we're very on Big 12. So that's not ideal, but something that's kind of interesting on Torvik, since Johnny Furphy has entered the starting lineup, Kansas is 5 on Torvik, right? 4th in offensive efficiency at 125.9, but 30th in defensive. And since Furphy has joined the starting lineup, KU's 5th in efficiency, but they have 3 losses. So I don't know if that's scary or if that's good, but I still think with the Furphy thing, KU has been way more efficient with him offensively, which is what they need to be good in the tournament. I think they're still trying to figure out how to guard with Furphy, and that's why the defense is taking such a hit. And maybe that's why they're losing some of these games. But I still think the upside with Furphy really cool.
His offense is so good, it outweighs. He's learning on defense, and this was always going to be the case with him. It was always going to be, trying to work him in on the defensive end. But the fact that he's producing on offense, like, dude, no one else can shoot. I feel like it's so frustrating. But I don't think when Furphy enters the lineup and Kansas starts losing, those two are not correlated, right? It's literally just because Kansas can't win on the road. That's I mean, that's an easy answer. It's just bizarre. Kansas can't win on the road at all. I'm tired
All
of it.
right, y'all. 75-70. KU falls to K-State. Got Baylor coming up for College Game Day, and we'll have Foster Nicholas here at the next segment. Just a quick little recap. Hunter Dickinson, 21-12 versus Kansas State, blocking a steal. DeJuan Harris had 15-8, probably one of his better games of the season under the radar. Furphy, of course, struggled. 4 points, 2 of 7 from the field, 4 rebounds. Then you had McCullough, who shot 30% from the field. But he had 15, 6, and 6, still filled up the stat sheet. And then KJ Adams, 13 points, 6 of 12 from the field, ended up fouling out. So did Hunter in this game. Foul trouble was kind of a little bit of a problem, but it really wasn't because Kansas still played through it. But yeah, tough one, Jackson. Big one. It's just every game on the schedule is a big game. It's crazy.
It's every game's a must win. Every game is a must win. We have entered, honestly, starting with Houston, every game was a must win. So we just keep rolling.
Yep. We'll see you in the next segment, y'all. We will see you talking to Foster.
As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 each and every week of the college basketball season. We have a special offer that will be available starting on Tuesday, January 9th, and running through Monday, February 12th, the morning after Super Bowl 58. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, in honor of the big game, you can use the bonus code FIELD158 and you'll get $158 in free bets on your first wager with BetMGM, regardless of whether or not you win that first bet. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app. Sign up using the bonus code FIELD158. Deposit at least $5 and place your first wager on any game. You'll receive $158 in bonus bets regardless of the outcome of your bet. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD158 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available under one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient when I have to go cover games in New York or Philly, which happens quite a bit. When you cross state borders, you just log into your existing account and fire away. You don't have to create separate accounts in each state. It's easy, it's simple, it's clean. And most importantly, we have some fun stuff coming up for the heart of the college basketball season. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odd boosts, and my favorite, a nice juicy parlay boost. So download the BetMGM app and sign up today. Field 158.
Welcome back, everybody, to The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. We are now joined by Foster Nicholas, a junior at Baylor, who is involved in all sorts of stuff journalistically there, from being a radio director to writing for Bears Illustrated 247. So we'll be picking Foster's brain a little bit about this top 15 college game day matchup in Allen Fieldhouse between Kansas and Baylor. Foster, thank you for joining us, and how are you feeling today?
Yeah, no problem. Doing good. Thank you. Thank you for letting me. I'd love to be in Lawrence this weekend to go see that game, but watching from home, I mean, you guys got a great environment there, so it should be a ton of fun.
Yeah, it should be crazy with game day in town. It always is, even though Kansas really hasn't had the best of luck on game day recently. I think it'll be a great game, but let's kind of get into this Baylor team now. Kind of sneakily, Baylor is sitting here at 6-3 in the conference, just half a game back of Houston. Can I just get your thoughts on the Big 12 this season, just how much of a gauntlet it is, and do you think Baylor can win this league?
I do. I think Baylor's in a really weird situation where they're the only team in the Big 12 right now who hasn't had a game decided by double digits in conference play. Everything's been within 3 possessions. So you're actually seeing how competitive this Big 12 is every night, whether it be opening night against Oklahoma State and only pulling that out in overtime, or a 9-point win against BYU. Nothing is close and nothing is given. And I think you have to win on the road. It's going to be whoever has the best sub 500 record on the road who wins the Big 12. There is not going to be a team who is over 500 on the road. So as many wins as you can get on the road is important. And I think that's obviously what the Bears are doing. But I mean, losing at home is even worse.
No, yeah, 100%. So before we get a little deep dive into the Baylor roster here, let's start with Scott Drew. He is one of the best coaches in college hoops. Kind of, as soon as he got that national championship, that was pretty much cemented in stone. So, what is it to you, being someone who's there and around the team on campus? What does he bring to the Baylor Bears basketball program?
I think it's really just the diversity, the way he's able to change up his scheme year by year, adjust to the personnel that he has. He's able to do whatever he wants, really, just with this culture that he's brought into Baylor. And that's something that I would say none of the teams on campus had before he got here. He really established the identity that the football team has, even that you'd see from the women's basketball side. He brought in this culture of joy, and it has spread across campus. And I think it's something that Baylor students and faculty, alum can all agree with and kind of side behind. So he's changed the culture, and obviously you saw that. I mean, Mac Rhodes getting fined for talking about the officiating the other night at Iowa State. Within 24 hours, that fine has been paid off by the fans, and I think that's just a testament to kind of the atmosphere that Scott Drew has brought. He's the guy on campus, and saying that as the head coach, it's normally a player, but it's Scott Drew right now.
Foster, were you there when he got ejected?
Oh, I was there. I'm sitting in the media section looking, and he was definitely barking. But Scott Drew is not one to use some profane language.
Yeah.
He's barking. He doesn't like what he sees. Steps his toe out, and he goes with our athletic director. Sits in the locker room. My favorite quote from him. I mean, they were sitting in the locker room watching the TV like 5 seconds behind, so they know exactly what's going to happen based on the cheers they can hear in the stadium. But that was the wild game.
Can you believe he got ejected still? I saw that, I was
so
like, no way. What did he do?
it was clearly arguing about some calls. He wasn't getting the calls that he wanted, and that was obvious. I mean, 11 fouls within the first 9 minutes of the second half on his team, all of them pretty ticky-tacky, and then he gets that second technical foul from an official on the other end of the court. He was trying to talk to one of the other officials, and head honcho said, no, thank you, and he got booted. And I think that will be – we've already seen the fine for Mac Rhodes, but I do anticipate a comment about the officiating sometime next week.
Well, Scott Drew is probably one of my favorite coaches in all of college hoops, and it's because of one simple reason. At Big 12 Media Day a couple of years ago, he said that after I interviewed him, he said I was the best dressed person in the room. And that really stuck with me. I don't know how many other people that Scott Drew said that to that day, but it really stuck with me. So Scott Drew, he's one of my favorites. He's a great coach, and another great coach is what Kansas has, and Bill Self. What do you think of this kind of Scott Drew, Bill Self matchup? They've been going at it for a while now, and do you think Baylor, Kansas is kind of turning into a rivalry game maybe for these schools?
When you have programs that are this good consistently, it's hard not to put the rivalry title on it. It's just like, I don't know if I would go to the extent of rivalry. I think it's just really exciting games, and you don't get a whole lot of those across other conferences. Of course, every single game in the Big 12 has been a really exciting game, but when it's consistently two teams right now in the top 15, usually top 10 at this point in the season, it's a lot to look forward to. And I mean, testament to both of the coaches and the recruiting that they do to bring those players in as well.
Typically, really good Baylor teams, some of their past really good teams, including that national championship team, have had really good guards. And this team really is no different. You got a projected lottery pick and Jacoby Walter. You got Ray J. Dennis, a transfer, and then you got Langston Love. What about this group is special, and how do they kind of stack up against some of those previous guard groups like a Mitchell, Butler, and Teague?
I think from what I've been saying all year long, this is the best defensive guard group that they've had since the national championship team, and I think that's something that was sorely lacking the past couple of years. Ray J. Dennis has kind of established himself as the go-to guard just because of his facilitating skills and the way he's able to handle the ball. I'd also toss Jaden Nunn in there. He's been really aggressive the past two games, and he's kind of the guy down the stretch who the Bears have trusted along with Dennis. I mean, Walter's been up or down, clearly has the potential to be the best shooting guard in the Big 12. I think that's hands down going to be a lottery pick for a reason, but while his shooting hasn't been there during Big 12 play, he's really been a guy who gives you energy in the rebounding category on the defensive end. And I think those were some of the biggest questions about him coming into the year. So seeing that he has that drive, I think this team stacks up really well with what you've seen in the past. Langston Love, obviously, also the guy off the bench who's leading the Bears in scoring in Big 12 play. So it could be anyone on any given night. And while that is a strength, at some points, just because you can go to whoever the hot hand is. It's also kind of hurt this team because they don't know who to go to down the stretch. So I think they're still looking for their closer and that identity at the end of games.
Help me out with some pronunciation here. Is it Yves Misi?
It is Eve Misi.
Eve Misi? See,
Eve
that
Misi.
first name, that really threw me. I had Misi, though. So, anyway, he's been playing great, especially down the stretch of Big 12 play. So, do you think that he can kind of give Dickinson some problems during this game?
It's going to go one of two ways. He either handles Dickinson great and he has a few highlight level plays, or he racks up 3 fouls in the first 10 minutes of the first half. And I don't think there is an alternate universe there. Like, it's going to be one of the two extremes. He's done a great job lately of not fouling too much, getting to the free throw line and actually knocking them down. But early in Big 12 play, he'd have 4 fouls by the 10-minute mark in the second half, and you wouldn't be able to play him a lot. Going to the bench, going to Jalen Bridges at the 5, and that's just not something this team wants to do. He'll only play probably a max of 24 minutes. Still put together 17 points on a good night. So I do think that he could cause some trouble for Dickinson, but I think that's still going to be a lot of double teaming and tough for the freshman to kind of handle. I mean, his blocking potential is great. I think there will be a few blocks, and you guys will be shocked sitting there like, wow, he did that. But then again, there'll be just as many fouls where you're like, I can't believe he actually left his feet for that pumping.
Yeah, you mentioned Jalen Bridges. He's probably my favorite player on Baylor. He'll probably be matched up with KJ Adams, who is maybe the most unique player in college basketball right now. So what's the key there looking at that matchup?
I think Jalen Bridges is a really good defender. He doesn't give anything away. The tendency from the guards as well as Misi has been to leave their feet on every pump fake. Jalen Bridges is going to be the guy who's going to be sliding across the court. He won't let anything go for free. So I think between Adams and Bridges, it's going to be whoever wins the battle is the one that's playing smarter. Bridges has kind of lost that a little bit down the stretch if he's not the go-to guy. And I take it back to the Texas game where he took 9 shots. All of them were 3-pointers. That's not what he wants. So since then, he's only been kind of in the paint, rocking there. So I think he's just going to be playing within the flow of the game, and whichever one of them can kind of settle in the quickest, I'd anticipate that battle goes their way.
So Baylor right now sitting at number 4 in KenPom in offensive efficiency, but they're, I think, in the 30s, something like that, in defensive. What makes Baylor so elite on the offensive end, and what would you like to see them kind of improve upon defensively to be a little bit more connected there, make a deep run in March?
The pick and roll has always been something that Baylor thrives with, whether it be driving, kicking it out for a 3-pointer, or working it with the big man and getting that alley-oop dunk that they've had this year. I think the most exciting part of this Baylor team is they can do anything exciting on offense, whether that be an alley-oop dunk or a deep 3-pointer. On the defensive end, they've only got the exciting plays, whether that be a big steal or a big block. They don't have those fundamental, just get a stop here. A lot of, get a 3-pointer here, get a 3-pointer there. That's not really what this Baylor defense is giving up. You saw an Iowa State game, a 20-0 run, a 15-0 run. They aren't really clicking at the same time. And when they are, the Bears can't capitalize on offense. So I think really moving forward, you've got to limit those runs from the opposing teams to 7-0, 10-0 on a bad night. But there's been consistency of 9 minutes without a point, and then the other teams get a chance to run. And Kansas could really capitalize on that. So I'd like Baylor to kind of do both at the same time for 40 minutes, and that's something they haven't done dating back to even non-conference play.
Do you have a score prediction for this one? And maybe some keys to the game as well? What are you just thinking with this matchup?
I think Baylor has to come out. With the Foster Pavilion and the atmosphere that we have here, I think they have to come out quick. They understand what it's going to be like in Lawrence with that. The fan base, college game day, it's a really, really big game. Baylor has to jump out to a 10-point lead at some point in the first half if they want to win this game, because Kansas is going to be a team that can close down the stretch. Honestly, as much as I'd love to say Baylor wins this game, I think it's a really tough place to play on the road, especially with a Kansas team that's coming off a big loss, something that really hurts. And Baylor's had kind of an emotional 3-game winning streak because not everything could have gone their way. With the amount of one-possession games the Bears have gone through, I think that gives them a little bit of an edge in the closing category, but I'm still thinking it's going to be 1 to 2 possession game. Kansas comes out on top, probably 75-71.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. I think this one's going to be pretty close. I had it at 78-74. So
that's pretty
similar
close.
differential.
Pretty similar here. This one last thing for you, Foster, before we let you go. Just how is it? They used your name for it, Foster Pavilion. So how is the new building? I'm just curious. I'm actually doing a facility management project for one of my classes on Foster Pavilion, just because I think it's a cool building. So just tell us about it a little bit.
No, it's a great building. I'll walk around on campus and I'll say my name is Foster, and they're like the pavilion, like the building, and I'm like, yes,
Oh, yeah.
that's definitely the reason why. I mean, I think it's a
They
great
named it
atmosphere.
after you, Foster. They named it after you.
I tell myself that, and then I realize that just may not be the case. But I really love the atmosphere. It is the loudest stadium I've ever been to. And I think that's just the way it was designed, building straight up. A little bit disappointed some of the older fans aren't able to come because the seats are literally that steep that one wrong step and you fall down. But I really, really like the atmosphere. It is loud. I think we had a decibel meter hit 115 the other night. It's a crazy atmosphere, and it's one of the biggest home court advantages in the Big 12.
Is the steep steps the reason the camera angle sucks so bad on ESPN?
Okay. The
That's
camera,
brutal, man.
it is really bad. It is really bad. I don't like it, but there isn't much they can do about it based on what they built. They literally built it into the highest part of the stadium, almost into the roof. So you're staring from the roof down onto the stadium, and the only way they're able to move it potentially would be next season, and they'd have to take away those precious seats that they set up for those VIP people.
Wow.
So weighing the two options, I think it's probably going to stay the same.
Yeah. I know Scott Drew loves that building. He's been very, very he's talked about it a lot. He loves that place. Well, all right, Foster. Thanks for joining us on this episode of The Hum. We got Baylor, Kansas coming at 5 p.m. Central Time on Saturday. Should be a great game, another great game in the field house this year. Jackson and I will probably be there jumping up and down, so should be a fun time. Thank you again, Foster, and to everybody out there on The Hum, we will see you next time.
Thank you, Foster.
No problem.